It's not just nice to have your horse view you as a leader, it's really necessary. And it can be accomplished without a lot of domination and force if you really understand how horses think and relate and behave in our world. I've met several trainers and I've seen several trainers in action who say think like a horse, and then they follow up that suggestion with something that is very human orientated and doesn't come from thinking like a horse. And I think this happens because horses and people are a real opposite of each other. For you to really think like a horse and be able to relate to how a horse thinks, you have to really give up how you think as a person to actually fit into that role. You can't really blend the two together. People have a very high cognitive ability, and a horse, on the other hand, only has a cognitive ability of a 2 or 3 year old child. So the level of and ability of thinking is very skewed there. But on the horse's side, there's also a big skew. Horses aren't really big thinkers, but they feel things. They have very sharp intuition that we, on the other hand, don't have. They have a very keen perception of the world and what's going on, what might happen seconds from now. They know when you're about to do something before you really move. They can take it from a blink of your eyes that you're going to do something. They're that in tune with you. I have a good example of this. I had a trainer tell me to think more like a horse, and then she turned around and gave me a very human-orientated suggestion to try. She suggested that I don't talk so loud around my horse and that I don't make big gestures around my horse. And what that suggested to me was that she doesn't understand how horses interpret volume or large movements. Horses understand that it's not the volume of your voice, the level of your voice that shows the change in your emotion. It's not how big you make a movement that shows the change in your emotion, the change in your calmness, your aggression, your dominance, your leadership, your control. All those things are not measured by the volume of your voice or the bigness of your movements. It's going to look kind of silly, but I'm going to try and give you an example. If you're making big movements and going la da 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 da, it's a big movement, and you can see that that's not the same as it's not the bigness of the movement or the volume or how loud your voice is that's showing the change in your emotion. It's the intensity, it's the projection of your voice, it's the tone, the inflection, the directness that shows the change in your emotion, the change in your calmness or your leadership in that case. Ruby doesn't like his nose messed with, so today we're messing with Ruby's nose. You ever see the parent that's running around the grocery store and they're yelling at the kid, and the kid just continues to do what they're not supposed to be doing? Then you see the other parent who tells that child, "You better knock that off in a New York minute, young man," and the kid stops what it's doing. That's because it's not the volume of the person's voice, it's the inflection and the tone. Chap doesn't seem to like to have his head held and have his nose worked on. So we're going to work on that a little bit. That's good. There you go. That was a good boy. Turn the volume on your TV up and then turn it back down. See if the characters seem more or less aggressive to you, if they seem calmer, more in control because the volume is turned up and down. That's a very good boy. Well, put it down. That's a good boy. Just rest it. Horses who are not saddled with having to think so much understand calmness better than people. Horses that feel more than we do and understand calmness more than we do understand that it's not the volume of your voice going up and down that changes your emotion, that changes your calmness. Calmness is an internal thing. Notice in this next clip how totally unconcerned my horse is that I'm flapping this piece of foam around him. The reason why he's so totally unconcerned is because he's mirroring what I'm expressing to him. And what I'm expressing to him is that I'm internally calm, I'm quiet, I'm grounded, I'm balanced, I'm focused, and I'm confident in what I'm doing. But you should be able to flap stuff around its head and jump around and be able to do things without the horse becoming excited. Because the level of voice doesn't make any difference to the horse. The calmness comes from within here. You can talk as loud as you want. You can wave your arms around as much as you want and everything. Right, Bubby? If you have a horse that misbehaves, turn to yourself and look inside yourself and see why that might be. See if that horse is mirroring something about you that you don't really realize that you're projecting to that horse. If you have a horse that behaves and functions well in most situations and with most people, and then you find that there's 1 or 2 or 3 people that it doesn't behave well with, you need to look at what those people are projecting to the horse, because the misbehavior that the horse is showing is what he's mirroring in that person. Say, for example, if the person is not focused on what they're doing, and they got a lot of traffic going on in their mind, they're thinking, oh, I gotta hurry up and get to work after this, or gee, I had that fight with my wife or my husband this morning, and I gotta reconcile that tonight. And they're thinking about all these different things. The horse picks up on that, and it doesn't understand what you're distracted by, but it sees it as you're not being grounded in the moment, and you're not with them on the same page, so to speak. It's very important that you be internally calm and internally focused when you're going in with a horse, and understand that a horse has sized you up and decided whether you're going to be potentially higher or lower than them on the pecking order before the training session even starts. You can't just put your head down, turn away, and do certain movements and so forth to fake it. A horse understands that you're faking it, believe me. It's very important that you be focused in the here and now. If you have things that you're worried about, things that you don't want to forget, you're thinking about, oh, I got to pay that light bill later, or I got this issue I got to deal with when I get home, or I got to leave for work in a half hour, those things, you need to get rid of them. Write them down on a list if you're worried that you'll forget them, but let go of them when you get in with your horse. A horse lives in the here and now. They don't have all that traffic going on in their mind, and they view that traffic in your mind as an interruption in your calmness and your focus. And to really be leader over a horse without using force and domination, you have to one-up them in that area. You have to be a little bit more focused than they are. You have to be a little bit more centered than they are. You have to be a little calmer, or at least equal to them. That's a start. If you really want to learn more about how to do this, I'd suggest that you join a yoga class or you take a martial arts class. They have short little martial arts classes there, a couple days a week for a couple months long, that'll really start to get you to realize how being calm and focused and being a leader comes from within inside you. Now I'm going to show you where my horse misinterprets how he's communicating with me. This is kind of fun to be able to show this. First, you need to understand that my horse asks for a treat by flapping his lips around. And in this next clip, where he has his head over my shoulder during the massage, he's flapping his lips around because he's saying, I'm doing what you asked me to do, can I have a treat now? What he's not realizing is that as a human being, I need to see his lips flapping around to understand that he's asking me for a treat. And the reason why he doesn't understand that is because if it were 2 horses and he had his head over the shoulder of the other horse would be sensitive enough to feel that he's moving his mouth around and to know that he's doing it. That's a very good boy. Don't put down. Down. That's a good boy. Just rest it down. If you've ever studied any of John Lyon's material, you will have heard him say at some point that a horse is so sensitive to touch that they can feel a fly landing on them. Well, he doesn't understand that I'm not that sensitive. He's flapping his lips around over my back like I'm another horse. If it were two horses together and he had his head over the shoulder of another horse, that horse would know that he was flapping his lips around because he's that sensitive. This is a very clear example of a human and a horse trying to communicate with each other, and the ways that we communicate and our sensitivity to things is very different. You hear me say this a lot. If you really want to learn how a horse perceives you and how they relate to the things that you do, get yourself a video camera and videotape your sessions. The camera that I use here is a cheap $125 camera, and it does the job quite well. This is another case where it would take a 2-hour video probably to really explain this in any kind of depth. But in a short little YouTube video, I'm trying to implant the idea in your mind so that you can go out and explore this even more on your own.